తీసుకోవచ్చు.
Good morning, students.
ఏం న్యాయం నందా చేది కూర్చోండి.
Good morning, students. So far, you have to cover what is the basic of the data mining and what type of databases you have to discuss in so far in last decades. So in older days, from 16,000 to up to 19,050, that is the 1950. So you have to write whatever the data you want to store. You have to write in on leaves, but later you have to store the information in files. Then after you have to store it into the databases. Now, whatever the databases, you have to use the different types of databases. Those all databases, you have to mine that our required information by using the data mining process. So how you can discover the data? That is the data mining process. That is the query. See here, it was. What kinds of data in data mining you can handle with this? Here, these common resources we have to use it in data warehouse. So in older days, we have to use the flat files. So like whatever the data you have to store in the files one. For example, you have to see the C language. So in the C language, you want to store the employees information in the files one. So first you have to defining the file, creating the file. Then you have to read the data, and the data you have to store into that file. So you want to retrieve that information from the files one. So before designing the databases, they have to use the files. From those files, you can access the data in data mining. So that is also can possible with the data mining. And the second case, that is a relational databases. So 1970s, 80s, so mainly you have to use these relational databases. So the data you have to store into the particular pattern. So now nowadays you don't have any pattern to storing the information. But when you already like in databases, whenever you have to use, that time you have to use the some pattern. For example, you want to store the data into the table. First, you have to storing the data into the tables. First, you have to defining the attributes. In those attributes, you have to store the data. So the relationship between the tables you have to represent it with these relational databases. So this is the collecting the data from the various sources for the employees table or student table or college table. So you have the different types of tables. So that all you have to relationship you have to represent it with these relational databases. So from these databases and files and these data warehouses, from all these kinds of data, you can mine with the data mine. So third one is the data warehouse. So data warehouse means generally you have the some of the data are flat files, some of the data is relational databases, some of the transactional databases, some of the multimedia databases. All data you have to represent it in a single state, that is in multi-dimensional cubes. That is, you have to simply call it as data warehouse. For example, you have to take the relational databases. In the relational database, in a particular data, in a particular student table is there, and as well as employees table, as well as uh, department tables. So you have the number of tables you have to represent it. All these tables you have to represent it in a single multi-dimensional cube. That is simply called it as data warehouse. That means the data you have to arrange it in a particular order. That is simply called it as data warehouse. So here from these data warehouses, you can mine the data. And the next one is the transaction databases. Whenever you have to use the banking database, banking sector, in banking sector, mainly you have to use this transaction databases. Day-to-day transactions, all you have to store into that databases. So whatever the particular account information, day-to-day transactions already you have to store into these databases. So numerous of customers are there for each bank. So that all customers transactional data you have to store into these databases. And the next one is multimedia databases. So multimedia databases mainly you have to use like Facebook, Twitter. So nowadays whatever you have to use the social media. So all that data you have to stored into these multimedia databases, like videos and images. So all this data you have to store into these multimedia databases. And next one is the spatial databases. This is the spatial databases. Mainly, you have to each and every sync every second the longitude and latitude of the uh, position of the a particular rocket. That all information you have to store into these spatial databases. So mainly in rocket launching systems, we have to use these spatial databases. So time series databases, so temperature related information we have to represent it here. World Wide Web. So World Wide Web, you know that whenever the internet connected, you have the huge amount of data you have to upload it, and number of people you have to download it. So the data, whenever we have to upload it, the all you have to represent it as stored into that in various different formats. So like big data. So that all information you have to store into that. From these all databases, you can mine this data. Whatever you have to require, that information you have to mine by this data mining only. So these are the various kinds of data you have to use in data mining. So almost all databases, from all the databases, you have to mine the data. Okay. So this is regarding to that what type of kinds of data you have to use in data mining. You know, this is the flat files. So whereas you have to use like flat files means CSV files or Excel files, whatever you have to use. Flat files is defined as data files in text from binary from with the structure that can be easily extracted by data mining algorithm. So here, this is the you have to required information you have to retrieve from these data files. That is the flat files. Like flat files means CSV files or Excel files. So these all are flat files. From these files only, you have to retrieve the data by using the data mining algorithms. And the next one is from the relational databases. How you can mine it? You know that relational databases is a collection of data organized in tables and with rows and columns. So the relationship between the one schema to one table to another table that you have to represent it with the schemas. Here you can represent it two types of schemas: physical schema and logical schema. Physical schema you have to represent defines the structure of the tables, and logical schema represents the relationship between the tables. So mainly you have to, whenever you have to using the databases, that time logical schema mainly you have to use. The relationship between the tables, based on the tables, you have to creating the primary keys and secondary keys with the logical schema. So from these databases also you can our required information you have to retrieve by using the data mining algorithms. So data mining concept OLAP, analytical processing. Next one is the data warehouse. Simply data warehouse you have to simply represent it as is defined as the collection of data integrated from the multiple sources that will queries and decision making. So here we can represent three types of data warehouses. One is the enterprise data warehouse, and next one is the data mart, and third one is the virtual data warehouse. Enterprise data warehouse, entire data you have to store into this enterprise data warehouse. Data mart means simply particular information. Virtual data warehouse means similar type of data. We can represent it here. So here you can use two types of approaches you have to use whenever you have to update the data into the data warehouse. First one is a query driven approach, and the second one is the update driven approach. So from this data warehouse also you can mine the data by using the various data mining algorithms. And the fourth one is the transactional databases. Already we have to discuss transactional database is a collection of data is organized by timestamps data to present the transaction in databases. So here commit and rollback transactional databases we have to use. Commit commands you have to use it for undo and redo the operations. Mainly these are the transactional databases based on the asset properties, atomicity, isolation, durability. So what are the properties we have to use in DBMS? So all database, all properties we have to apply in this transactional database. So like an application, mainly you have to use the banking sector, distributed systems, object databases, comes under this transaction databases. And the fifth one is multimedia databases. Multimedia databases means these databases consist audio files, video files, images, text media. So those all data we have to present it in these databases. They can be stored in object-oriented databases. Some predefined formats are there. Digital libraries, video on demand, VODs, news on demand, musical databases, all you have to represent it with these multimedia databases. Geographical information you have to store in spatial databases and store the information of the coordinates of the latitude and longitude of the a particular pocket information and the topology information, lines, polygons, that all you have to store into these spatial databases. Mainly you have to, these spatial databases, you have to use it in maps and global positioning systems. So time series databases, the extreme databases and influx databases, graphite database, these all are we have to present it as time series databases. Time series databases mainly you have to use it in stock exchange. You know that stock exchange. That is regarding to this time series databases. And the last one is the World Wide Web. World Wide Web is a collection of documents and resources like audio, video, text, so XML. So you have the different types of formats of data you have to use it in World Wide Web. That is all are identified with the URLs, that is the uniform resource locators with the through web browsers linked by HTML pages or accessible by the internet. So mainly this is the World Wide Web you have to use it in online shopping, job search, research, studying. So all the information you have to store into this World Wide. So from this, all these kinds of data, you can mine what you have required with the data mining algorithms. Okay, these are the kinds of data you have to use in data. So almost all databases, all type of data, you can mine with the data mining. See here, how to analyze this data? What type of kinds of data you have to use it in data mining? Already just now you have discussed. How to that data you have to analyze by using the data mining algorithms. Generally here you have to using all these databases. What it represents terabytes of data, that is the petabytes of data you have to use it in real-time environment. that is the tremendous amount of data. From that data, by using the algorithms, how to analyze uh, various data mining algorithms. So high dimensionality of data. For example, you have to use data warehouse. So the entire data you have to represent it with a single cube. That is a multi-dimensional. So nearly 4 or 5 tables you have to represent it in one cube. So that cube, by whenever you have to flip that cube, so our required information easily you can capture. So that is a very easy process to mine the data from the data warehouse. So here, high dimensionality of data, that is the microarray may have tens of thousands of dimensions you have. Generally, you know that 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. Maximum 10 dimensions, you know that. So whenever you have to represent one cube, multi-dimensional cube, so the dimension value you have to increase. So based on that, easily you can extracting the data from data warehouse. That is simply data analyzed by tremendous amount of data. That is the first case. Second one is high dimensionality. Dimensionality, you have to increase the multi-dimensional cubes. That is the way easily you can analyze. That is high dimensionality of data. And next one is the high complexity of data. So high complexity of data, mainly data streams and sensor data. So what type of data we have to use in real-time environment, all you have to represent here. That is the high complexity of data. So sensor information, time series information, temporal sequence data, structural data, graph information, social network information, spatial information, multimedia text, web data, software programs, scientific simulations. This is the high complexity of data. These data also you have to analyze by using the data mine. So here, సురేష్ కొంచెం కవర్ చేసి అటెండెన్స్ తీసుకోవా కాదు ఇన్లేషన్ డ్యూటీ ఉందంటే నేను అటు వెళ్ళొస్తాను